anything you can borrow?
Yeah. It's the first time we've ever had this where a citizen has asked us to read this into the record.
Is it a public hearing?
No,
It's just public comments?
it's just public comments.
It's really a policy for the board, but I don't recommend it. You know, public comments are supposed to be when people are there to, I don't know, have you ever done it before?
It had been done in the past, but not with only with the old board, not with this board.
Her husband's here. He could read it.
Yep.
If he wants to read it, he can read it. If not, it's good. You know, we'll attach it, but that's it. Huh?
Well, first ask him if he's going to read it. They shouldn't get it if he's not going to read it. Don't you think?
I think it.
Huh? I think that's a horrible precedent. For a public hearing, yes. The public comments? Is this the whole thing went, including Bansky's thing? But he can bring his neighbor's comments. You can read a neighbor's letter. He can just read that it's his wife's comments.
Yes.
So this is what you said?
Yes.
And what's the date of this one? I mean, I'm trying to figure out which one's the 20th, the 18th.
So
It says it's March 30th. But these are all. Right, oh, his is March 30th. Yours aren't dated.
this is 2014 for sure.
So do you think it's in this order, that this one is that one? And then
I don't know order. I got
I know what
6:30.
map here. These two I didn't.
Yeah, for some reason I printed two of them. No, the attorney said no.
I don't think there's any alternative law. Public comments is supposed to, public hearing, if we had a public hearing, yes, we would have to read the letters. But if you're gonna have a precedent,
Well, I got 6:30. Good evening, everybody. I've got 6:30. Welcome to the Town of Waukesha Plan Commission meeting on February 12th, 2015, beginning at 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, could we begin with the roll call, please?
Supervisor Fisher?
Here.
Ken Miller? Bob Stigler?
Here.
Dan Buchholz?
Here.
Chairman Merrick?
Present.
Bob Flanagan?
Here.
And Madam Clerk, have we met all of the requirements of the open meetings law?
Yes, we have.
Okay. And we can begin with citizens' comments.
Good evening. Sandy Hom, West 230 South, 3827 Milky Way Road. Regarding the Five Diamonds request to again amend their site plan and plan of operation, the most recent amendment being only 9 months ago, I note that currently the hours of operation are 7 to 10:30. The applicant had asked for and was granted those expanded hours last May. Now the request is to extend the hours another 90 minutes per day to starting at 6 a.m. and going until 11 p.m. I'm opposed to any extension of the hours of operation. The new drawing says that 144 parking spaces have been added. I could only find 98, and only one stall for a disabled person's vehicle. I refer you to Wisconsin's Chapter 346 for handicap parking rules. The submittal references a mound system. I do not believe Five Diamonds has a mound, nor do I believe whatever they have is sized for adding 43,000 square foot building. If there is a new mound planned, I couldn't find any mention of it in the packet materials. The proposed building at nearly 43,000 square feet is a full acre in size. It doesn't compare to the originally proposed structure and the earlier approved smaller structure. That approval is immaterial. The planner's report lists several town issues which seem to me more like town ordinances that would prevent this proposal from going forward as presented. Building facades and landscaping requirements are two of them. But item 1 refers to permitted uses for P1 zoning. It seems obvious to me that the proposed plans are not consistent with P1 zoning, and that is precisely why the planner brings it up. But perhaps the biggest issue with this proposal is its intrusion into the wetlands. Town Code Section 13310 requires a building setback of 50 feet and an offset of 20 feet in a P1 district. And Town Code Section 13210 regarding building locations in general states, every structure shall be at least 30 feet from the Conservancy district line, and goes on to say, filling and or grading activities within 30-foot offset area shall not be allowed. Beyond that, it would seem the county has some issues. While the planner did mention several items in the letter from Alan Barrows from the county, the planner failed to mention any of item 3 in the Barrows letter, which states, quote, the building location does not comply with the wetlands preservation restriction and setback on the subdivision plot. Let's hope the Plan Commission and Town Board can honor and obey our laws and at the same time meet the needs of the applicant and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm reading this for Angie Vansock. Do you want my name and address also?
Yes.
Okay. Carrie Wolf, S51W25447, Glendale Road, Waukesha.
Is this the same document?
Yeah, or were you planning on reading that? Okay. Okay. This is again from Angie Vansock, S51W25375, Glendale Road, Town of Waukesha. I am out of town. I ask that the following be read by the town clerk in the citizen comments of the Plan Commission this evening, entered onto the minutes, and that the paper copy be given to each attending Plan Commission and Town Board member. I wonder how history remember the members of the Plan Commission and Town Board. Will it be as stewards of the community, people that honor, respect, and uphold our town ordinances, or will you set a precedent that will forever haunt legal enforcement of our town zoning code? You, the Plan Commission and Town Board, are entrusted to uphold state statutes and town ordinances, which includes our town zoning code. The request before you tonight from Five Diamonds asks you to throw away the rule book as well as your common sense, and, in my opinion, is an outright assault on our town zoning code. I question how a project comes before you that is out of compliance with so many provisions of our town zoning code. The building Five Diamonds has proposed is larger than the Walmart neighborhood market on Highway 164. The Five Diamonds property is Lot 7 of Deerfield Estates subdivision. Tom Kellenick developed that 7-lot residential subdivision just a few years ago. The Deerfield Estates subdivision plat provisions fully protect the wetlands that Tom Kellenick proposes to fill. Our town zoning code protects the wetlands as well. Our town zoning code further protects the wetlands as no grading can be done within the required 30-foot setback from the wetlands. Further, the project does not comply with the landscaping requirements of the town zoning code. The project does not comply with the exterior finish requirements of the town zoning code. The project does not comply with the setback requirements of the town zoning code. The project does not comply with its own subdivision mandates to protect the wetlands. It does not matter that the Army Corps of Engineers or DNR have signed off, as they have weighed in on only one of many issues. It does matter that you follow the town law. If you do, the project as presented cannot be approved. Sincerely, Angie E. Van Sock.
Thank you. Anybody else? Then we'll move on to approval of the minutes. We'll start with September 11th, 2014. Is there a motion? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. And I will abstain as I was not present. And September 25th, 2014. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to 6, discussion and possible action on the site plan of operation amendment for Peters Real Estate, Inc. The applicant is Debt Wizard. Location is South 17, West 22650 Lincoln Avenue. And I see we've got somebody from Dent Wizard here in our audience.
Hello.
Good evening. Planner Ray Barczyk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you tonight is Debt Wizard. They are looking to occupy approximately 11,000 square feet of the enterprise rent-a-car facility to conduct minor cosmetic automotive repairs on vehicles that are managed solely by enterprise rent-a-car. The automotive repairs would include scratch repairs, buffing, plastic bumper repair, alloy wheel repair, paintless set repair, minor panel repair, spraying of automotive parts, and a limited retention station. They're proposing to employ 3 full-time employees. They would be using existing parking spaces that would be provided by to Debt Wizard by the enterprise rent-a-car. Their hours of operation are going to be Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then closed on Sundays. They will install a sliding glass curtain within the existing automotive shop, as well as a portable paint booth mixing room, portable paint mixing room and a portable paint booth. The specifications for both the paint mixing room and the paint booth were provided to the town clerk. The current enterprise rent-a-car facility, they operate under a site plan of operation, which was approved back in 1999. In order for Debt Wizard to occupy a portion of the building, they would have to amend that plan of operation. So that's why they are before you tonight. With that in mind, on page 2 and 3, if the Plan Commission tonight so chooses, I did put together a recommendation for approval subject to 12 conditions. This is a permitted use within the Industrial 1 district for the automotive repairs that they're looking to do as part of their business. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you for any questions.
Any questions for Dent Wizard? Chief?
You have a question regarding number 6 on the recommendation was it's asking for 3 full-time employees and it says 53 on that.
It would be 3 full-time employees for Debt Wizard and then
And then that's probably the 53 enterprise employees that are working in the front of the building.
before I said enterprise has 50 employees, I just wanted to check that. That's correct, okay. So it's a combination of the two.
Item number 6 on there looks like it's correct.
Dan, is your mic on? Jamie, you got 2 shall reflects in number 6.
That is correct. I just struck it out.
I move to approve.
Second.
Further discussion?
Minutes to reflect that the maker of the motions, including all of the
Subject to the
conditions as set
conditions,
forth.
right.
And, thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Fisher, do you have any objections to not having these folks stay around for the board meeting? Thank you. On to number 7, discussion and possible action, site plan and plan of operation amendment. Owner Jack Gaudian. The applicant is John Rodell. Location West 270, South 3125 Merrill Hills Road. This is Merrill Hills Country Club. Good evening.
Hi.
Planner Rybarczyk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you tonight is petitioners for the Legend at Merrill Hills. They are looking to construct a 20-foot by 46-foot deck on the north side of the clubhouse. The deck will be accessible from the first floor of the clubhouse. There is also exterior stairs from the deck that will lead to the existing patio below. The deck will be used for outdoor events. So with that in mind, on page 1 and page 2, if the Plan Commission so chooses, I put together a recommendation for approval subject to 9 conditions.
Thank
With
you.
that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
You guys had a couple of changes to your plan to facilitate. I think Chief Buchholz, you had some concerns about egress.
Yes, we're aware of the moving of the door, and we are in agreement with that, your recommendation.
And I guess I was told that you're changing the layout of the stairwell coming down too.
Yes, the current drawings show just a straight run stair. To accommodate better access, we're going to be putting just an intermediate landing and just a 90-degree turn to it. But it would be in essentially the same location.
Does that satisfy you from the fire protection? Yes.
Is that one of the conditions then?
Yeah, in my staff report, condition number 6 was subject to the fire chief signing off on it, so that, yeah, that is part of. What I do ask is that when you have the final drawings done, if you can submit them to the town so that we have the correct drawing on record at the town.
That is acceptable.
So you're coming off of the dining room level down to the patio and extending that dining room level out? I haven't seen the plans yet.
No, all it is we're just adding a door to the outside deck, and then there's a secondary exit that would go down to the lower level, which is currently a concrete
That's what I
patio.
wanted to see. Oh, okay.
Putting this deck on, but they're moving this door
Okay,
over
I
to
got
you. And the stairs are gonna have a landing here and then they'll go this way. Instead of going straight down. I'll make a motion to approve. I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
With the conditions that were just added as well as the planner's conditions.
Second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, could I just have just a real quick moment of personal privilege, just make a real quick comment back to the Dent Wizard issue, if I may?
Sure.
Thank you.
Not trying to be mean and keep people here, but just a brief explanation for you and for the folks from Legend at Merrill Hills here. There are 9 people up in front of here. There are 5 of us that are members of the Plan Commission. When we go to the next meeting, there's going to be a changing of the guard. That Plan Commission actually is only a recommendation to the town board, so it's not a binding action. And my reason for suggesting that you would like to stay with us is there's 3 board members who are actually in the audience with you that will be joining us, and I think just as a matter of courtesy to them, it's appropriate to give them an opportunity to speak. They may be loaded up with some tough questions for both of you, so that's the reason that I suggested that.
Thank you for
Nothing
the
more than that.
clarification. On to number 8, discussion and possible action on the site plan of operation. Owner is 5 Diamonds, Inc. The applicant is Tom Kelnick. Location West 234, South 3555 West Paul Parkway. Good evening.
Good evening.
Planner Rybarczyk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you tonight is 5 Diamonds. I think we're all well aware of the baseball complex. What they are looking to do is amend their site plan of operation to accommodate a 42,840 square foot indoor sports training facility, additional parking, and a 105 foot by 120 foot multi-use field. In order to locate the indoor training facility and the parking, they are removing 2 of the smaller diamonds that were on the southeast corner of the site. Along the east edge, there is the ATC utility easement that runs along that. The expansion of the parking lot will occur within this easement, but all lighting in that will be outside of the easement, as well as the training facility will be outside of this easement. In my staff report, I have identified 4 planner comments as part of their submittal that was given to the town engineer Janelli and myself. They do have correspondence from ATC. ATC has approved the additional parking lot, again, as long as none of the street lighting is within the easement or the building. There is a letter from the Army Corps of Engineers that's authorizing up to 6,927 square feet of wetland fill, subject to some conditions. One of those is confirmation of the Section 104 water quality certification has been granted by the DNR. The third is a letter from Jury from DNR approving the state wetland water qualification certification under the Clean Water Act. The fourth is a letter from Alan Barrows stating that the proposed grading plan meets the county stormwater management and the erosion control ordinance with regard to accommodating best management practices. I will have Engineer Janelli shortly here to talk about the setback from the Conservancy District. And then last, there was correspondence between Engineer Janelli and Alan Barrows with regard to the wetland delineation from Don Reed. That was originally conducted in April of 2010, and it is good for 5 years. With regard to the town policies, I've identified 3. The first one is at the P1 zoning district, which this property has been rezoned to. It does talk about that the purpose and intent is for public and private outdoor park and recreation space and public lands to the greatest extent possible, along with preserving conservation of natural environment and features. As far as the permitted uses do talk about not only the outdoor activities, but it does talk about that you can have buildings and structures that are supportive of the outdoor recreation facilities, including parking. So a determination that the Plan Commission and the board will have to make tonight is if they feel that the indoor facility meets the intent of the P1 district. As we all know, in the original approvals with the conditional use and the site plan of operation, there was intentions for a building. While it wasn't to the size that's being proposed today, it was part of the original approvals. It was when we rezoned the property and did the final site plan of operation, the applicant had asked that that specific condition be removed for his own reasons. The second that I've identified is with regard to the architecture of the building. We do have in our ordinance that says that 50% of the building should be of a brick, decorative masonry, glass panel, EIFS, or other appropriate finished grade facade approved by the Plan Commission and the board. So the question that I raise for the Plan Commission and the board is that they need to make a determination. The metal siding that they're using, do you feel that that's a finished grade material of sort? Then I think that it fits within the code. And then the third is with regard to the new building, it shall be accented by a minimum amount of landscaping placed around the foundation. Currently in the plans that was provided, we could only see that there was one tree that was being planted along the building. So they are including the rain garden, which is part of a requirement from the county with regard to best management practices. So I think the Plan Commission and Board should take that into consideration, but there may be areas where additional foundation plantings can be included. So with that, depending on the the wishes of the Plan Commission, tonight I did put together a staff report for recommendation of approval if you so choose, and it does have 10 conditions in it, keeping in mind that the original plan of operation would still stay in play as well. So when you read through this, for example, the hours of operation that are being proposed, these hours of operation would only be for the indoor facility. The other hours of operation for the outdoor facility would still remain as they were part of the other site plan of operation. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Engineer Janelli, could you address the fill-in of the wetlands area?
Certainly. In town code, as we've kind of heard this evening from comments from citizens, that town code has a conservancy setback of 30 feet from wetlands. And this is kind of a no-touch zone, I guess. No grading, no building, no anything, except under conditional use and maybe some other issues. Given the fact that we've received state and federal concurrence that wetland fill is acceptable, it's a little gray. I would say that the setback is kind of this is kind of a generic code that most communities have, and in fact the state of Wisconsin also has. In most instances, when we run up against this, it's for development of a piece of property in which we try to minimize the impact to wetlands for obvious reasons. In a case like this where it's almost somewhat necessary to get wetland fill in order to do the project, the process that they're going through is traditional and acceptable and kind of happens rather frequently. These rules, this setback is in place to obviously protect the wetland. DNR often interprets their code such that if you can build within it, and you can build anything within it and right up to the wetland line, as long as any runoff from that is directed away from the wetlands or somehow cleaned prior to discharge into the wetlands. So in an instance like this, they've designed the building with the roof to be pitched away from the wetlands and roof drains directed to the rain garden, parking lots directed to the rain garden, and then that discharges by a long grass swale, in essence, all the way around the building to discharge to the wetlands. So although it sounds odd that we would be filling wetland, we're in essence reducing the setback to protect them as well. So I believe the town code doesn't specifically say in black and white that this is allowable, but I would say that the interpretation of similar codes in other communities and obviously the state allows for this.
In your opinion, does the Army Corps of Engineers and the DNR permits that have been issued override the town code?
I guess that might be a legal question. Obviously, the DNR and the U.S. Army Corps regulate the wetlands. So to fill them, they don't need a permit. They have a permit to fill them, so they can do that. Whether our setback overrides that, I guess I wouldn't say that it does, but it could be an interpretation.
Counselor, can you weigh in on that?
No, my answer would be no, it doesn't override it, because we already know the DNR from even the engineer's report, the DNR allows building right up to the wetlands. You have a more restrictive code that requires 30 feet. So we have the right to be more restrictive than that.
In this case, does the, if the wetland is filled in and doesn't exist in that area, does the setback then line get moved?
Generally, yes, I'd have to check the code, but is there any wetlands left on the property? And are they 30 feet from it?
How much wetlands are on the property? Approximately.
Acres. I'm not sure the exact amount. We've got wetlands in this area, here, wetlands back in here. So it's a significant portion of the property. We're taking this little corner right here. And a small space for the drive. But the question is, is the building 30 feet from what will be the wetland?
No.
No, they would in essence have to fill more wetland.
Thank you. In essence, they'd have to fill more wetland to create a 30-foot setback.
In essence, to conserve the wetlands, the DNR and the Corps of Engineers request that we minimize the amount of fill.
So rather than fill in more wetlands in excess of the 6,900 square feet to get to 30-foot setback, you'd increase that substantially?
Correct.
What's going to be inside the building? Is this a typical health club where you're talking about workout machines?
It's a training facility for athletes, ages, young kids to professional athletes across the board. They have rehabilitation for anything from disabled vets to knee and different joint rehabilitation.
What do you envision, a membership type operation?
You pay to participate, and they have different clubs will rent space in there. They have batting cages. I know there's professional football players that go there to work out. They lift weights. They do cardio. They do lacrosse training.
What I'm getting at is it would be open to families.
On a pay-use basis,
Well, I
yes.
understand, but wouldn't that be for everyone? I mean,
Yes.
Is there another level of membership that?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Is this a franchise is this something that's going on all around the country in your?
Is Next Level a franchise? No. It's a local company.
Okay.
They're located in Pewaukee right now off Westwood Drive.
One of the other questions that came up was a mound system. Are you connecting to the existing septic, or?
There's a mound system proposed on the west side of the property. We'll pump the effluent over to it near the existing system that they have for the park.
What about landscaping and the appropriate number of points for new landscaping?
We did take a look at that and increase the landscaping. We distributed a new plan that you should have.
And another question was parking. How many parking spots do you have?
I think Jamie counted 144 new stalls, of which we'll make sure the appropriate number of handicap stalls are installed.
We'll ask him in a moment.
Is the landscaping plan, is that an honest rendering of what it would be?
With the landscaping of the building, no, that's more to show just the building.
That's what I'm getting at. That looks rather Spartan, if you call that landscape.
Yeah. Is this your new landscape plan?
Yes. Yep.
This is really not that visible from the road, is it?
Not at all. And it's up against the wetland.
Yeah, I know.
Planner Ray Barczyk, how many parking spots do you have, did you identify?
98. From the lot, including the lot to the north of the multi-use field, and then the lot to the south.
How many, 98?
98.
I thought it was 144.
It's 98.
Okay, 98.
And is 98 a sufficient number for the facility?
With regard to the parking that they have up in the northeast corner, and then the new parking that they're doing, the parking counts that we did using kind of a ratio of multiple sections of our ordinance, because our ordinance doesn't say how many you need per baseball field and how many you need for indoor facility. It talks about retail and service use and warehouse use and hospitals, et cetera. We felt that they were sufficient.
They work with about a third of the parking that they have right now.
What about the outdoor lighting?
The outdoor lighting is on the west side of the parking lot. On this side right here, shining onto the parking lot. And the foot candle count by the time we get to the east side of the parking lot is essentially 0. We can't put poles in the ATC easement.
And the screening between lot 26, 25, 24, 20, along the other side of that power easement? I'm thinking about the people that back up there off that cul-de-sac.
Those lots are empty at the time there is a tree line there. There's an existing tree line there.
All right.
Any other questions?
Well, I have a question. Is this where we, personally, my own personal opinion is I think it's an excellent use of the property. And I don't think it's very intrusive to any of the neighbors. Now, as far as ironing out the things that are permitted, not permitted as far as the structure is concerned, but it's an excellent use of the property.
Supervisor Fisher?
Was there a mention of the facade of the front of the building and stuff that was not the code, or has that been rectified with the landscaping part? The building itself, I mean.
With regards to the building itself, Planner Ray Barczyk, could you tell us what our code allows us to do?
With regard to,
Building
The
materials.
building itself, Jamie.
are you talking about the exterior of the building?
Yes. I thought there was some mention in the code about what's required in the town.
There was. The way that the code reads is that 50% of the building should be brick, decorative masonry, glass, finished facade approved by the Plan Commission and the town board. So the way that I interpret that is that at your discretion, if you feel that the metal siding is a finished grade material, then you could approve it as proposed. If you felt that it is not a finished grade material, then they would have to provide a different rendering to the building.
Okay, so there's no requirement for masonry or square footage of masonry in the front or anything like that? It's just up to the discretion of the Plan Commission?
Not technically. You have to be brick, decorative masonry, glass panel, EFIS, or other appropriate finished facade. So there's no discretion, but the planner has stated it correctly. If you find metal to be an appropriate finished facade, that's fine, but that means you're gonna approve every metal building, because if you find it to be a finished facade here, you're gonna find it to be a finished facade elsewhere, and I don't know what your past practice has been. You can't say because of where this is located. This has nothing to do with that part of the code. This is an architectural standard, correct?
Mhm.
And so, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I
You
guess
have to
that's-
make it, you have to make a finding that it's a finished facade,
And I guess that's what my question is, what's we've done in the past to be consistent is what you're saying, John, that we have to be consistent on that. Right.
And I don't know if you found other metal buildings, total metal buildings, to meet this requirement or not.
Planner Rybarczyk, do you have any input on that from past practice?
Within the town? The town?
We'll start with the town and then spread out from there.
Within the town of Waukesha, this is the first one that we've had, that I've reviewed with regard to architectural materials. In other communities, we're seeing, depending on location, we're seeing more and more of the Morton buildings that have usually the main entrance facade as the decorative architectural materials, and then the other three sides are the metal siding. So I think that there is a trend moving forward that the metal siding is becoming more popular. Maybe it's because of financial needs. But again, I think it's the discretion of the Plan Commission and the board.
Any other communities that you've seen this in, or do they have similar code requirements that we have that has some, it says 50%, but then has some leeway?
Town of Vernon is 33 and a third % on each elevation. Has to be a finished grade material.
I notice there's no natural light in the building. Are there skylights planned? Are there exterior windows planned?
There's some exterior windows on the sides and on the end wall, both sides. We don't have them on the front. On the higher elevation, there is a mezzanine there, but it's baseball batting cages up there. And with respect to the exterior finish, we do have a concealed fastener metal panel. The metal panel reads from a distance much like a precast panel. It's insulated. This panel is only about 1.5 inches or 2. The one we're using is 3 inches thick. It's a grade R value, but a clean finish. It's an embossed finish that from a distance reads very clean. And that's why we chose that. It is concealed fastener, so you don't have screws hanging out all over.
Could we see that, please?
Supervisor Fisher?
Thank you. A couple of comments regarding the town policy issues that Planner Rybarczyk put before us. Number one, they're pertaining to the use. I would note that our P1 Park Recreation and Public District is for both public and private usage. This clearly is a private usage. There is verbiage in there that Planner Rybarczyk pointed our attention to as to whether or not the use serves a public interest. Clearly that's a somewhat subjective question to pose and answer. In my judgment, it does in this instance. We have a long list of permitted uses, some of them that seemingly might be inconsistent with others. This P1 zoning district is appropriate place for municipal buildings, churches. I find a bit interesting and tongue-in-cheek, it is also for bowling on the green. We haven't approved that recently, but it's a whole variety of usages there. And as Planner Rybarczyk indicated, it includes building and structures that are necessary or consistent with those above uses. From my perspective, there's no question that this is a permitted use in the P1 zoning district. And I think it would be a very good use and a welcome addition to the town of Waukesha. Question 2 about the use of exterior building materials. My conclusion on that is that metal is an appropriate finish material. I think that doesn't limit the prerogative of this plan commission and the town board to consider individual projects and architectural aesthetics. I think those are two different questions. There's actually a lot of building design and construction going on with metal facades, not necessarily the type that you've contemplated, but some of that is frankly very, very high-end work. That's a simple reality of where we're at. So I think the answer to that is yes. I will tell you, I do have, or at least did have, a concern about the landscaping. I understand the context in which this is placed, proximity to other buildings and uses and so forth. It appears both in plan and on the rendering to be a bit Spartan. Apparently you've provided us with something additional. That's not the time or purpose or prerogative to evaluate that at this point in time.
We could work that out with
But
staff.
I think you're coming up short on landscaping. The last comment that I would have is yet listening a little bit to the discussion about the filling the wetlands, that type of thing. We need to be respectful of and honor our town ordinance and so forth, and I know we've got some professionals here that are a little bit struggling with that question, and I hope they're going to be able to enlighten us. So those are my comments. That's a little bit of an open question moment. I understand that it is a relatively minimum area that's being impacted. Understand that you are proposing to take some efforts with the rain garden and the drainage and so forth to be respectful of that intent. I understand and appreciate that, but we're struggling a little bit with that issue. So those are my comments.
What is your perspective on the filling of the wetlands and setback requirements and so forth?
When I look at this project and say what they've done with this property and know where it could have gone, I look at it and I am a town citizen. This could have been a big parking lot. They've got infiltration throughout the site with the exception of the parking lots. This could have been a industrial or commercial space. They've got how many different fields? 6, 7 fields, 8 fields, wide open. I think they've done an incredible job of using it as parkland. The infiltration, the green area that they've kept this space as, I think for them to take the 6,900 square feet that the DNR and the Corps of Engineers has approved, I think it's an appropriate use.
I was heading in a different direction. How do you get around our setback requirement?
I've seen this in different occasions where the setback has been varied because it's as we go into the wetlands, we don't want to extend another 30 feet and take more wetland to gain that, just to meet a setback. The Corps of Engineer and the DNR both agree that they'd prefer to see the minimal, and they have given us the minimal in, I think, 12 feet, 10 feet.
Planner Ray Barczyk, do you have the title and chapter for our setback requirement?
The P1 District Park Recreation is 13-3-10. And then with regard to the setback to the C1, it's 13-2-10.
Question?
Yes.
As people researching and looking at that, and maybe this goes to Planner or Barczyk or maybe the other gentleman here, do we know, I see your drawing identifies a line with reference to wetland, and I know we had item 5 on the second page of Planner Robarchik's staff review refers to the wetland delineation conducted by Don Reed back in April of 2010. I guess my questions are, is the wetlands line on your drawing, do we know for a fact that that is Don Reed's delineation? And then another question is there conservancy zone? For a minute, I guess I'm going to ask you to educate me or differentiate me. Tell me they're one and the same, but the difference between the conservancy zoning and wetland, are they one and the same, or are they different in this instance?
In most cases, they're one and the same. Since I've come on board, I know that we have had issues with our C1 because it was identified under old modeling and mapping practices. We have been working with Waukesha County to have them draft a new zoning map for us based on the FEMA and DNR mapping. That draft map has been created, but it has not been adopted, but it does show, I think, more accurate boundaries for the Conservancy, but again, it hasn't been adopted. So as developments have been coming forward, and as we have been dealing with issues with wetlands, Chris and I have been looking at the information that we've been getting from the DNR, and we've been making the judgment based on that. In this case, in our interpretation, and I tend to agree with Chris that when you have the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers that give you a delineation and a permit, we felt that that was the more accurate information than what the town had. But I believe that Attorney Macy has a different interpretation in that case.
Where is the new wetland line in relationship to the building?
10 feet south of the building. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you get around that?
You have to fill more wetland. Yes. To get a 30-foot setback from the wetland, then we'd have to fill more wetland, which the Army Corps of Engineers doesn't want us to do, and the DNR doesn't want us to do. That's the only.
Or shrink the building by 20 feet.
You can't move the building by 20 feet.
No, we're up against the existing fields.
Both sides.
Have to be more on a ball field.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. If the DNR establishes the wetland, and the DNR says to them, in essence, they're changing their rules to accommodate, I don't see why we're getting in the way.
I can answer that legally. Your town board has made a policy decision that your town code requires 30 feet from the wetland. Immaterial of what the Army Corps of Engineers says and immaterial of what the DNR says, your town board has made a policy decision and wrote a law. So that's the legal answer to your question of why we're concerned about it. You as a plan commission are required to implement the policies established by the town board. I can't do anything but read you the law. They wrote a very specific law that said everything had to be 30 feet away. And we're struggling with how we get around that necessarily if you want to get around it, but it's a very specific law. It's only like 2 sentences long. So that's the answer to your question. Because we have a specific town code that is more restrictive than, and we know you have the right to be more restrictive.
Is there an option to move your building further? Yes.
We'd be moving it into the baseball fields, the Catholic Memorial Field.
Your multi-use field, just give me an idea what you have there.
If they're training in the summer months and athletes want to go outside, whether it's to use a sled for football or some ground ball fielding, any activity that they might be doing inside. They might little lacrosse, catching, general activities that they can do inside or outside. Just get them outside
You know,
instead
120 by 105 is really not a lot of
It's
area.
not huge, no.
Yeah.
But it gives them a grass area to work outside.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, but they should be done.
I did not go through the DNR process, but I question if they wouldn't then say, if your building's out of the, then they're gonna look at why do we need to fill wetlands? So we're gonna continue to slide.
Because to comply with the code that we have.
Yep.
Is there an option to, is there an option to move the building to the north 20 feet? In the alternative, is there an option to take a notch out of the building in the area where you would get to comply with that?
Looks like it's no fair length of it.
It would be, it would take significant space. Yeah.
If this is all filled in now.
Take a significant chunk out of the building.
The building to start with was about 14,000 square foot bigger, and we took that off. We've shifted the building 20 feet to the north. The building can't go any further than 20 feet to the north because that's where our main power source comes in. We have a 3-phase system that comes into the park.
Dean, if we shifted the building, if they shifted the building to the north, is that going to impede your access also?
Because you'll be up tight against the fence, an outfield fence. You can't, there wouldn't be any access to that. You can't do that.
And it's not strictly the building, it's the driveway. I mean, this was, again, approved by the DNR and the Army Corps. This was 8 months in the works to minimize and disturb the least amount of wetlands possible through a federal and state agency.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a question I asked this open-endedly to any of the requesters here, even to our staff. Is there a possibility of creating some wetland area? I'm looking, west of the southwest corner of the building. I mean, what is often done is creating, or in some instances restoring, but wetland restoration, but creating some wetland in the area. Was that explored at all?
Well, there's a rain garden going there behind the building. There's approximately 11 acres of wetlands on the property.
No, I understand that, but the rain garden is on the north side of the building?
West.
The west side as well?
Right.
Okay.
Dan's going to need access to the north.
Fire department access.
No, I understand that.
There's a rain garden right here.
What I'm talking about, come a little, the line down in there, is there any possibility of extending that wetland line basically to the north and to the west? Is there any part of our town ordinance that would say that that baseball field has to be any distance away from the wetland? Is there a possibility of creating some there?
But how does that address that still doesn't address the setback issue?
Well, I guess I'll ask the question this way, and this maybe opens it up even further. I asked this of Attorney Macy, you're taking a look at it. Is it permissible to fill wetland any place in the town of Waukesha?
I don't know your code. That's not been the issue that's been raised by the public comments or any report. So I guess I would assume you can fill wetlands in the town of Waukesha if you receive the appropriate federal and state permits.
I mean, for the minute, taking it out of the context of it, we have a proposal here, and we've got the issue with the wetland before it. I mean, just theoretically, if somebody would have had requested permission and gotten permission to fill some wetland in there, or created some wetland some other places, and it weren't in conjunction with this project, would that be an issue?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Okay. I'll be more than happy if you reword it to try to answer the question. I mean,
Sure.
would it be an issue?
If these were not coincident events, would it be an issue to fill wetland area in the town of Waukesha?
No, I mean, you could come in and get permit to fill wetlands for a road or things like that, and this wouldn't be an issue because you wouldn't have the 30-foot setback then. The setback, the first question you asked is, what does the setback apply to? And I assume it's an offset or setback from a building or a structure. So if you're just building a road, I don't know that there's any offset of a road from anything. So this is the issue is because they have a proposed building within 30 feet of the wetland. So I don't know if I've answered your question. If they had come in years before or however and filled a wetland, we'd still look to where the current wetland line is. I mean, the new wetland line. I mean,
The new wetland line.
Yeah.
You've answered.
Measure 30
right.
feet, and we're for
From the
this
new wetland
discussion, giving the benefit of the doubt that there's a new wetland line. It might require a rezoning, but that's another issue, because you have this zone something, and if they take it out of the conservancy and it no longer meets the description of conservancy, the conservancy line might be able to be moved. But they've admitted it's 10 feet from the new proposed conservancy line, and that's what the public has raised issue with, is that we don't have the right, there's nothing in the code that we can find that can waive
I understand.
that 30 feet.
I understand. In our town, and I guess I asked that back then to Chris and to Jamie, that is zoned conservancy now coincident with that wetland line or not?
That's been the interpretation that we've been using, that when someone comes to us with wetlands, that we consider that to be zoned conservancy, even though it's not mapped.
That's helpful because at least then we don't have to do a rezoning. It's a great question. Because now it's not mapped, it's just by the definition of the C1, you look to the definition of C1, you say that's where the line is. Where the wetlands have been mapped to be is where the line is for the C1. It's very typical in many zoning codes. So that line will move per our code, but it doesn't move, you know.
Chris, we've had many meetings, and the last meeting we left, it was crystal clear to everybody in the room.
The interpretation that DNR has always used is, and I know this for a fact because I've designed projects and built projects this way, is that in that setback, if what you build is draining away from it, you know,
That doesn't answer the question. The question that we had all along was, if you had a permit from the Corps and a permit from the DNR, and you got county approval to fill within the wetlands, what happens to the setback line?
well, the setback line moves with the wetland.
Right.
So
with the,
that's kind of the discussion, why the discussion got brought up in the first place was, how do we address that issue? And I was using the interpretation that, you know, like the DNR uses, that you can do that, and you drain the draining away from it, and you're bringing it to a rain garden, and life is good from that perspective.
so I guess I don't understand the issue.
We have a legal opinion that
The law in the state of, I'm not giving a legal opinion, I'm just telling you what the code reads. I've not been given a chance to look at this. This is the first time it came up with citizen comments. So I'm not going to give a legal opinion tonight. I can read the code and I can see what the code says in its black letter on its face. And what we don't know on the DNR side of it, just so you know, is you're telling me, and I did not know that, but I'm going to believe you, that the DNR has a 30-foot setback for structures also.
For pavement, for anything impervious.
But they must have a waiver provision or they can't allow this building. Filling has nothing to do with it. They have to have some kind of waiver procedure to say in certain instances the 30 feet doesn't apply, right? And if you're telling me they have a provision.
I don't know the exact code that DNR uses, whether there's a provision to allow that, or if it's just the water management specialists who are interpreting it that way.
My understanding, and I'm not refuting what you said, I've represented communities now, as you know, for 35 years. There was no wetland restriction. Now, there may be one now, and you're telling me there is in NR
216 and NR 151.
Okay, and so I'll believe that. But in the old days, there was no restriction. And the local communities could allow building right up to the wetland line, as long as nobody interfered or went in the wetland line. And then communities started to add provisions like this provision because they wanted to have it. Sussex, for instance, I think is only 15 feet. We had none when a series of apartment buildings were. We had no setback, and we allowed it to be built right up to the wetlands, which they said then, I think that's ridiculous. So that's why I didn't know the DNR had one, and that's got to be fairly new. But if the DNR has a rule, you have to be 30 feet away, they also must have some provision to waive that rule if your drainage is this or that, or they don't have a rule that's 30 feet away. I'm just saying theoretically. We have this rule, and I can't find any exception to our rule.
The permit itself.
It's the permit.
The permit itself is actually stating that we can build with that 12 or 10-foot setback.
I understand that, but if the permit can't violate the law either. So they have to have a law that allows the permit to be issued. I'm not questioning that you didn't get the permit. That's not the question. What DNR law allowed them to grant you permission to build less than 30 feet from the new wetland line? I don't know the answer to that question. But that question here is, I can't find a law that says that we can do that. Just because the DNR does or has a law that says you could, I can't find that law. I'll be more than happy to look for it, in the next few days, but I don't have a law here. I'll read you the section. Every structure, unless accepted by another section of this ordinance, maybe there's something in here, shall be at least 30 feet from the Conservancy District line and at least 2 feet above the highest ground elevation at the Conservancy District line on the lot. Filling and or grading activities within 30 feet offset area shall not be allowed. They're clearly violating that. And there isn't even a waiver of the second section of filling or grading activities within 30 feet of the offset area shall be allowed. Now, I hear the staff interpreting it as saying, unless approved by the Army Corps of Engineers and the DNR. I don't find those words there, that's why I'm struggling. Fair enough? I mean, and you're saying that past practice has been to read it, that all of this is okay as long as the Army Corps of Engineers and the DNR have approved it. But I can't find it, and I apologize, I don't have the code memorized. If there's something else in here that somebody knows, I'm more than willing to look at it. The chairman asked me to look for what I could look for, and I'm looking. I went to the special exception, and the special exception issued by the Board of Zoning Appeals only allows them 25% reduction or a 33% reduction. They won't get to 10 feet. The special exception law allows a reduction of the offset, but not that far. And then Jamie asked me whether they could get a variance, and I said, I don't think so. They've got acres and acres. They could put this building anywhere. They just want this building here. And they have lots of good reasons why they want the building here, but it ain't going to make a hardship or a practical difficulty under the law, because they could take out other fields and put the building somewhere else and not be anywhere near the wetlands, right? So I don't know how the Zoning Board of Appeals can find a hardship or a variance.
Well, doesn't our special exception section says that you don't have to show a hardship or variance?
That's correct, but they'll only get, they don't get to the whole
30 foot.
They can't get the whole 10 feet. then Jamie asked me whether they could apply for a variance, and I said, yeah, but under the law, they won't get it. This is self-imposed. They've picked this spot. I mean, under the law, I don't know how they would get it. So they can get a 25% reduction without showing a hardship under a special exception, but that's not enough. I mean, they would be able to reduce the building less, but they wouldn't be able to, you know.
Is that an option?
One option.
Reducing the size of the building.
We already did. We're not gonna shrink it anymore.
Okay.
It seems like the three options that we have moving forward is, one is that they'd have to go back to the DNR of the Army Corps of Engineers and request an additional fill to meet the 30-foot. Two is to make the building smaller, or three is that the town amends the ordinance.
And there is a fourth option, and that's we table it for tonight and we research it further and see if we can find out whether there's something else in the code that allows it. We just can't find it in the many pages that we have here.
You would
If
suppose.
past town boards have done this, maybe in the minutes of those meetings, we can find how they did it. Understand what I mean? I mean, your question and the engineer's answer was very helpful on the conservancy line issue. That the conservancy line is not a map. If this was a zoning mapped wetland, we'd have another problem. But this is a practical wetland. It's a mapped wetland, and we go by that, and that's very common. So that's great, so we don't have to do a rezoning. But we can continue to look and see if we can find a solution, and at least if we find out how the DNR does it, maybe we can find out how we can do it. Does that make sense? That's the only reason I wasn't trying to quiz anybody to the extent of, you know, just they may have a provision. If they have a specific provision, then we have to look for the same provision, right?
In your DNR approval, was there anything in there that stated how they got to that? How they got to the exception of their 30-foot rule?
You had to work with them to minimize the wetlands. So it was a narrower road, it was a smaller building, it was a shifted building to the point of where you can't shift it or turn it or twist it any longer.
I understand, but we're trying to get to a point where to find out how they got past their 30-foot rule, and how did they get an exception for that, so that we can look in the same direction.
They don't have a 30-foot rule.
Well, according to Engineer Ginelli, they do.
That's what the permit is for. To go into that, it's cut and dry. We're micromanaging the heck out of it is what we're doing. And like I said, this has been an 8-month approval. We turned the stuff in 3 weeks ago, and now we have to go look to see how they did it.
Yes, it's got to be satisfied. You got to satisfy the code, Tom.
Well, then it should have been done at staff when we turned the stuff in 3 weeks ago. It should have been looked into. We've had many meetings since we've turned the stuff in, and this has never been brought up to this degree.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question, I guess I'll direct this to Attorney Macy. This is on our agenda for discussion and possible action if the Plan Commission were of a mind to sort of take the, I think, last suggestion that you had, that take some time and research this and find out what we might find. Am I correct? We're not compelled to act on this tonight in any manner?
You're not compelled to act on it tonight, that's correct.
Okay, and we're not under any, other than I know the applicant is anxious, we're not under any time constraints or restrictions or impositions?
The court says you have to act on an application within a reasonable time, and reasonable time could be 6 months or a year in certain instances.
Okay. Well, I guess it would be my suggestion that we do not take action on this matter tonight until we get some clearer vision on these issues before us. And I'm not making that in the form of a motion. It's simply a suggestion that we not act on it tonight.
Second.
No, that wasn't a motion.
That wasn't a motion?
He said it was not a motion.
Oh, I thought you.
assist these gentlemen before you make a motion, because once a motion is made, theoretically, Mr. Chairman, you're not supposed to take any further discussion on it. I'd like to walk through, by going around the table, the other policy decisions that need to be made. And so, could we just start at one end, and I don't care which end you start at, and just, does everybody find the uses that proposed, I'm in the town policy issue on page 2 of the report? If you could go to your report. Questions have been made, and I just want to, and we're going to go around the table, we're not going to take the vote necessarily, maybe you will, but that's up to you, but does everyone find the uses that they're proposing to the use for meet the P1 district? I know you've already stated yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there's no question of the uses, and I don't think the citizens have necessarily raised an objection to the uses, but I'm bringing this up only because your planner brought it up, okay? Right? The next one is the panel. And are you willing to say, or do they need to bring back a different facade? That's a policy decision. You're going to be making, when you vote, be it tonight or any other time, you're going to be voting that this is an appropriate finished facade. And I'm just telling you, and you already heard me say it and you know it, that means anybody else who brings in this facade will be meeting your 50% rule. It's a very important decision. I mean, and it doesn't do them any good if you're going to table it just to research the shoreline, the conservancy issue, not to know where you're at on the facade issue. Fair enough?
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
You think it meets the?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
I've seen enough of that type of finished material in newer buildings. You could look downtown Waukesha. The newest apartments that are there are largely metal buildings. I don't have a problem with it.
I told them from the get-go that I didn't think it was the most aesthetic building, but I think it serves the purpose for this facility.
Unfortunately, Chief, that's not going to cut the mustard legally, because whether this building is on the corner of 164 and 59 or this building is tucked away, you would have to approve this same material for that building. So I just need to tell you that. I mean, and the other three have said they find this material to be fine. If anybody walks in a location and has a 100% building with this material on, I'm going to tell you legally you've made a decision tonight that that material is fine. And that's fine. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying you need to know the import of this decision.
Then I'm sorry. I have a question in that. You mean that we can't, as a board, this building is not really next to anybody other than open ground. It has in any other condition, if somebody came in and wanted to use this material, we couldn't make them change the use and how they use the material?
If I'm correct, if I'm reading the planner's report properly, you're making a finding that at least 50% of the exterior of this building has a finished facade. That material is a finished facade.
I understand that, but I'm looking ahead because I think that's the threat here. You're saying that if somebody comes in 3 years from now and they're located on a corner with abutting 3 properties or in a very active area, that we as a board, because we've done this in the past, we've made people enhance the exterior of the building.
And it's one type of finished facade. We could require that the finished facade on the corner of Sunset and Genesee Road is brick.
Well, I can look up the code, and I'll defer to the planner. The planner paraphrased that it has to be 50% either brick, decorative masonry, glass panel, EFIC, or other appropriate finished facade. You're making the decision that you're not going to require brick, decorative masonry, that this meets the requirement. How do you say it meets the requirement for this guy as a finished facade for this building, but not another building? That's not the issue.
That's my point. I guess I'm not asking it properly. This doesn't, if that was all canvas, it would hurt nobody. The use would be okay. Now, if that was next to 2 or 3 homes or next to another building that was enhanced, then we as a board would never have a right to tell that guy to improve the look of the building? We've done it all for years.
You can negotiate with them, you can talk to them, you can ask them to put in windows. I see plan commissioners do it every month. But if they meet the code, you can't require more than the code. You can ask them, but you can't require more than the code requires. Fair enough?
I'm sorry, now I'm confused. I thought if you listed the brick, you list this, you're allowed to have one or the other for each building. Now, we're gonna set a precedence here from now on, every building's gonna be steel?
It's meeting, you're saying this building meets the requirements. So if I'm a builder and I want to build in another location, and I come in and look at these minutes and I'll say, Jamie, does it read differently than you paraphrased it?
I apologize, Attorney Macy, but I disagree with you. I think that the Plan Commission and the board, and I've seen it in other communities with design standards, it's at the discretion to take into consideration the location.
Is that what the code says?
That's how I interpret the code.
I'm just telling you guys that you're not going to win in court if you decide that if they come in with a building that's 50% brick and you want 100% brick, you're not going to win. So now extrapolate that same thinking.
If I could just weigh in for a minute, the words of this, we can look at the rest of it. It says other appropriate finished facade. Do we not have some discretion as to decide what is appropriate in a particular situation or condition? I mean, I thought that's what architectural review boards are all about. I think the word appropriate, to me, the interpretation says that we can consider context and site location. That's my interpretation.
Keep in mind it is a concealed fastener architectural metal panel. It's not the old lap screw.
I think on any project that I've ever done, the Plan Commission has always had the opportunity to review the materials that I've used and suggested something else or more of a masonry product or an EFIS product. And I think it's been up to the Plan Commission's discretion. I respectfully disagree.
Decide if it's appropriate.
It's just not, I don't have the whole code up here. I'll look at the whole code, but that, from what I'm reading here, they have a requirement to meet 50% of either brick, decorative masonry, glass panel, EFSI, or appropriate finished facade. And when you make the determination that it's appropriate, why isn't it appropriate? Because you're going to say because it's a different location?
Certainly. Absolutely.
All right.
If you're on the corner of Sunset and Genesee Road, which is a hallmark rather than buried into a ball field or a park, I think that's an entirely different approach.
I understand what you're saying. I don't believe that's what a court would say, and I know what plan commissions do. I sit at hundreds of plan commission meetings. They get the best building they can get out of you, don't they?
Yes.
Thank you.
How about on to number 3?
Number 3, there's already been questions about the landscaping, and apparently some have stated they think there's not enough landscaping, and so if that's the consensus, is you want a new landscaping plan, you should tell them. If the landscaping's adequate, you should tell them.
I think that's something that could be reviewed with staff and satisfy staff's requirements. Jamie, would you be okay with that?
Well, because we're tabling it tonight, they'll have ample time to put together a new landscape plan and bring it back before the Plan Commission, so.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the board?
I agree. Oh, all right. Well, I move that we table it and give them a chance to get the ducks in order.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
consider this, now that the whole code up here, do you consider this a retail business, a service multifamily or warehouse? All the buildings here is facing a street in front of it.
We'll stick around for a minute, we'll start right back up. And then the board will approve you in a moment.
Yeah, on Monday I can write the contact Martin Montoya, and then you'll be working with Martin and Chief, we're gonna make sure that we have the water also.
I know what you're saying.
I know talking to Martin, he was still kind of on the fence about the portables.
When a subdivision comes in, you say, can you lose this lot? It's all arm twisting to get the best deal you can. And I agree with that. I think arm twisting's a good thing, don't get me wrong. But
Well-
when it comes push to shove and they say, legally, I don't have to do it. You know, I don't find any problem with the material. You know, maybe I want to warn you that if some other guy pushes you, you may get stuck, right? You know that.
Well, after Monday, after Monday, what I'll do is I'll send it to Kathy, and then Kathy will get it to you. And then once you have that in hand, you can work out
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Waukesha Town Board meeting, February 12th, 2015. And I have 7:59. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Supervisor Fisher?
Here.
Supervisor Durr?
Here.
Supervisor Radke?
Here.
Supervisor Wilk?
Here.
Chairman Merritt?
Present. And Madam Clerk, have we met all of the requirements of the open meetings law?
Yes, we have.
And we can begin with citizens' comments. We should note that we're starting off at 8 o'clock, if you don't have that already.
Good evening, Sandy Hom, West 230, South 3827 Milky Way Road. I didn't have anything prepared for this meeting, but I did want to respond to some of the comments that were made in the last session. I'm confused, and I might challenge the planner's suggestion that we can have two site plans. I'd be interested in the attorney's opinion on that. But I looked at the submission, and the thing that's submitted, because it reads funny, it reads like it's half the whole thing and it's half just for the additional piece. But the submission says property area is 31.86 acres and goes on and describes the north boundary as Highway 59. And the existing part is a softball and baseball complex. So to suggest that we're going to now have two plans of operation and we're going to have 2 hours of operation for the hours from 6 to 11 or 7 to 10:30, I'm very confused by that, and I don't think it makes sense. There was a suggestion that the building, it's gone, I guess, wasn't visible or wasn't much visible or whatever, and I would dispute that. It's actually quite visible. I've been looking where it would be every day when I drive to work and back, and every one of the lots that's in the old Moyer property on Moyer Way would be looking right at the walls of this building, and everyone on the hill on the east side of Milky Way would be looking at the building. So the fact that it's hidden from the highway is true, but excuse me, it's not hidden from anything to the east. There's suggestion that the DNR is okay with the wetland situation if the building drains away from the wetland. And the maps that I see and the rendering that I saw on the poster board there looked to me like it was going to drain to the south, which I would take to be the wetland. So unless someone can explain to me something different, it looks to me like the long edge of the building is on the north and on the south, and it would drain to the south. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Then we can move on. Item number 5, Plan Commission items, discussion and possible action on the site plan and plan of operation amendment for Peters Real Estate, Inc. Applicant is Dent Wizard. Location South 17, West 22650 Lincoln Avenue.
I'll move to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission for approval with the conditions noted.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to B, discussion and possible action on the site plan, plan of operation amendment for Merrill Hills. Owner is Jack Gaudian. Applicant is John Rodell. Location is West 270, South 3125 Merrill Hills Road. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan and plan of operation with the provisions on there as per the Plan Commission's recommendation.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion opposed? Motion carries. On to C, the recommendation from the Plan Commission was to table this action until some further research is completed.
I just make a comment on that. I, at the Plan Commission level, voted nay. I don't think it makes a lot of difference. I don't think we're compelled to act on that, whether the majority of the board feels comfortable with taking a motion to table, that's fine, or no action. I think it ends up being the same thing. That's my comment.
Is there a motion? Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of the minutes from January 22nd, 2015.
Do you have one correction? In the approval of the payments for 2015 should have been $95,809.60. It was a typo.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January 22nd with the correction that our clerk had noted.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to reports. Financial report from the clerk. I'm sorry, Mr. Fisher.
Just a couple of very quick things, really more of a preview of coming attractions than anything else. You may recall that we were looking at basically 11 things that we need to do in terms of developing a plan for managing the financial resources of the town of Waukesha, including the establishment of a capital fund, which we did back in December, developing a capital plan. We took at least the first step toward that at the last meeting when Chief Buchholz presented a long and short-range capital plan for the fire department. I believe that Supervisor Durr has been working hard with our Director of Public Works, Jerry Noley. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but I think we may be looking at that at the next meeting, at least a preliminary pass on some of those things. I know that our town auditor and our town attorney, Attorney Macy, have been providing us with guidance on some of the mechanics as we move forward regarding moving funds, expending funds, things of that nature. We're not going to get into that tonight, but there's a lot of mechanics of that that needs to be sorted out, so that will be unfolded as we move forward. A couple of other things just quickly to ponder. I think we may want to give serious consideration in the future with trying to make more financial information available to town residents on the town website. Not prepared to discuss that or make any recommendations in detail tonight, but we'll take a look at that. I know when buying just a bit of time, but Clerk Treasurer Nicholas comes back, she'll tell you a little bit that they're heading downstream with the audit and with our new accounting software. So we'll just pause. Good things coming.
Thank you. And Clerk Nicholas.
All right. Well, we hope to be going upstream instead of downstream, but the past 2 weeks we've been prepping for the 2014 budget. Baker Tilly was on premise this week working. In addition, we've been working on the next election cycle. We've completed the first tax collection in the county, and today should be our last day for refund checks for tax overpayments. We had a lot of extra overpayments this time due to the reduction of taxes. The Board of Review training is set for April 29th, and we're going to be hosting. Attorney Macy will be doing the training, and we've opened it up to other municipalities in the county to join us. I'll send you all an email on availability and to save yourself a seat. April 29th. I had some public records this week, or this month. Andy Van Sock as a 4-part public records request. Letters written to property owners on the town regarding noncompliance, compliant information, memos between the independent inspections in the town. This part of the public records request I have not completed gathering the information on, but as soon as the election's over, I'll work on it again. The other part was emails between independent inspections and the town board pertaining to letters of noncompliance from January 1, 2014 to January 27th, 2015. I've received emails from independent inspections, but I haven't had time to make sure that they're all complete, and we'll again continue that work after the election. Bills, records from independent inspections billed to the town from the same date, that date range, that portion is complete, and all non-compliance reports from that same date are complete as well. So out of the 4 parts of that public records request, I have 2 completed, and we'll continue to work on the other 2 after this election. John Merrick asked for candidate contact information. That was complete. Andy Van Sock requested for a full annexation spreadsheet created and maintained by the assessor, and that's been completed. We've been working on vendor email notification for documents placed on the website. This notification will allow a person to be alerted when a new agenda or minutes have been placed on the website. We are in the test mode currently. Anyone interested in joining the testing can do so. Once the testing is complete, notification will go out onto the website and in our next newsletter. After review of our court procedures, I found the town in the past has not collected money from tickets kept at the court fund for the town. I requested a $15,000 return of funds to the town, and leaving $7,000 to cover any administrative costs to the court. And that's my report today.
Thank you. Any questions for Clerk Nicholas? Then we can move on to 8, new business, discussion and possible action on 2015 and 2017 operator's license, beginning with Christy Alexandria Thottenson for the Legend at Merrill Hills. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next for Emily Ray Freiberg for Tally's Tap and Eatery. Is there a motion?
I move we approve Emily's operator's license.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to B, the request to install a water main in East Broadway right-of-way. This is a request from the city's water department. They want to increase the size of their water main in the area of the map that's been provided in order to increase the pressure and flow. It will benefit some of the town residents in the area that already have city water and sewer.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a minute to address this issue, if I may.
Please.
Would like to take just a minute to take a trip down memory lane, and I think it has some relevance to the request before us that I will tie in if you give me just a couple of minutes to trace a bit of history here, which probably many of the people in the room remember. The town of Waukesha has been in discussion for some extended period of time with the city of Waukesha about inclusion in their water service area. It's a topic familiar probably to all. Representations were made previously in writing by Dan Dukniak, the general manager of the Waukesha Water Utility, that town property owners, town residents would be able to connect to municipal water or city water without annexation to the city of Waukesha. That was provided in writing to the town of Waukesha, to the town board. Next step, a bit along that way, in January of 2013, the then town board voted to include but a small portion of the town of Waukesha in the water service area. That request had been in our hands for some extended period of time, and basically the town board went as long as we could before making a commitment in that regard. I was the lone supporter of the inclusion of the entirety of the town. The majority of the board, the other 4 members, were opposed to it. Things changed in the spring of 2013, I believe May of 2013. And many of you probably recall that that decision was reversed. And the town was included in its entirety into the water service area. No purpose tonight into traipsing back into all of the good reasons that would put forth reasons for to do that or not to do it. But part and parcel to that discussion and that reversal of that decision pertains to 2 letters that town board members have in front of you tonight, I think in a packet, and they relate to some discussions and negotiations that occurred between representatives of the town board of the town of Waukesha, of which I was not one, and representatives of the city of Waukesha. Part of that history is a letter dated May 25th, 2013 from then City Administrator Ed Henschel to the town board and supervisors, and I believe that was drafted in the context of while these discussions are ongoing. You also have a copy of a single-page letter from Chairman Merrick, which went back to the mayor, the city administrator, and common council, again dated May 22nd, 2013. And the relevant part of all of that to the request that's before us tonight is the town board agreed to accept the letter from City Administrator Henschel of April 25th, 2013, which in essence included inclusion of the town in its entirety in the water service area. But 2 important things on that the town asked of that or proposed amendments is that annexation of town properties into the city of Waukesha would not be required to obtain water from the city water utility, and likewise annexation of town property in the city would not be required as a condition of obtaining sanitary sewer service or connection to municipal sanitary sewer. That, as some of you might recall, had a, I'll call it 11th hour modification at the city's insistence. The word always, single word, but important word, was put into there, will not always require that. So that opened the door a bit. The relevance of all of that to me at this point in time is I think we might have an opportunity to see if we can strike a cooperative agreement, an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Waukesha. They want something or need something, which is their request before us tonight, as do we. Their request is to extend a water main through town property, and they're seeking our concurrence with that request. We still want, I think, and I don't mean to speak for others, you get your chance here in a minute, but would like to bring some clarity to that issue about the need to annex to the city in order to get city water and sewer. There are well over 100 properties in the town of Waukesha right now that are served by city water or city sewer or both, and many of them have been for many, many years. So what I would submit, at least for discussion purposes, that ought to be part of this is, do we have an opportunity? The city's got some new players on their team that weren't there 2 years ago. We've got some new players on our team. Is there an opportunity before us to strike an intergovernmental agreement so that we can give them some of the things they want and need, and we can get what we want and need in return? So I open that up to discussion. I guess is a suggestion that I think that that should be the posture of this board, to try to see if that we can do that in a cooperative way and get to a better working relationship than the city and the town have had with each other for many years.
Supervisor Fisher, what's your suggestion? What are you looking for us to ask the city for? Is it quite simply to remove the word always from our agreement?
that's what I am contemplating. I mean, I would obviously like to hear from you and other members of the board, but that's the direction in which I'm suggesting we at least want to discuss and consider going.
Anybody else have any ideas?
I got a question. Attorney Macy, how are we discussing this without it being on the agenda?
It's on the agenda.
Okay, I never got that. When did it come, when did you send that out? No, wait a minute. All we're talking about is the right way, the Main and Broadway.
That's what we're talking
Well,
about.
now I thought we're talking about this agreement of removing always.
No, what we're talking about, Supervisor
Striking-
Wolf, is
striking
that
the deal.
we're looking at approving our right-of-way, use of our right-of-way for the city of Waukesha,
Okay.
and in turn asking for something back from them.
Okay. Okay.
You have any thoughts on what you, is that something you'd like to ask them for? Is that, would you support removing the term, the word always from their agreement?
And as I understand it, we're talking about adding a word, not removing a word.
Well, in fairness, the document that you do have in front of you, it may not have been the final communication on that, but the essence of it was, is that it would not always be required, which left the possibility that it could be provided without annexation. And what I'm suggesting is to have that word always removed, and I guess instead of it would say would not be required.
You're not looking at the final iteration of that document, Supervisor Durr. And what I would suggest is that perhaps we go back to this letter of May 22nd, which doesn't have it in that, and ask that this be our official agreement between the city and the town. That town residents are not required instead of not always required.
I guess I'd have to see the final copy before I'd be able to render a, a decision as to whether I want to incorporate something into this request. What is the final agreement?
The final agreement was in fact this, with one word, which was one word added. Annexation of the town, in the fourth paragraph, annexation of the town property into the city of Waukesha is not required, and what they did is they inserted not always required. Other than that, the agreement remained the same.
So where is that agreement?
Someplace in the office. I don't have it handy.
But the purpose of tonight, just to go to Supervisor Wolf's comment, the purpose of tonight's agreement is, you know what's on the agenda. My recommendation is you give authorization to one of yourselves, I don't care who, don't create a committee, one of yourselves to negotiate with the city over this agreement that's on the agenda in light of the prior agreements, and come back. It should come back. I think you were contemplating it was going to come back, but you need authorization. So you're going down the table saying, what would you be looking for, if anything, if you were to give them permission to put the water main in Broadway?
Yes.
Broadway. What would you want in return, if anything? Because you could vote tonight to just sign it, but your chairman's recommending that you don't, that you go and you say, you want this from us, and one of yourselves should then negotiate with the city to see what, if anything, in return you can get. It's as simple as that, right?
Yes.
And so that's why it's relevant, Supervisor Wolf, because you could vote on it to authorize the president, the chairman, to sign it tonight, or you could authorize him or someone else to go negotiate with the city to say, if you want this, what can we get in return? The discussion, as I understand it, from the supervisor was, at the very least, we should allow service, we should strike that word or add, change that to what was more of your original intent? Am I saying that correctly?
Correct. The place that we were at and thought we were at until the 11th hour when that word was inserted. I guess with that said, so we can move the discussion along, I would move to authorize Chairman Merrick to enter into discussions and negotiations with the City of Waukesha and the City of Waukesha Water Utility and report back to us.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
I have a question. There's no cost to the town for this, is there?
Zero.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
I'd like to amend that. Could you restate that, please?
I'll best to have the clerk read it back.
Yeah, could you read that back, please?
To authorize Chairman Merrick to negotiate with the city on what they can and return with the report. Negotiate with the city on this utility.
It's pretty simple. It's to negotiate with the city regarding this agreement and report back.
Sure.
This agreement being the water main on Broadway.
Yes.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to C, painting and carpeting in town hall and offices. Mr. Wolf, do you have something for us on that?
Yes, it was brought up that they want to do some decorating in the town hall and the office. There were 3 prices gotten for painting the 2 rooms, or no, just the 1 room, and the other room is already wallpaper, so they won't be doing that. There were also 3 prices to get carpeting, and there was a price that a company will come in and move the furniture out of the office. They'll carpet the office, move it back in the office, and then reset everything up and buy 1 file cabinet and 1 file cabinet. The lowest prices were $1,300 for painting, $10,143 for carpet, and then $3,158.50 for moving the furniture and buying the file cabinet. And then also there was cleaning chairs. Now is that these chairs, all these chairs also, or just, okay, I didn't quite understand what the quote said. They're gonna come in and steam clean all the cloth carpeting, cloth chairs in this room and in the office, and that was $750 to steam clean them and to put a protective coating on it. So the full price to do everything was $16,000.
This was one of the things that were in the capital outlay, I think, from 2011. And we started looking into that when our carpet started ripping in our office, and this carpet can't be cleaned.
Mr. Chairman, a couple questions for Supervisor Wolf or otherwise. What information, the carpeting proposal is to remove and replace the carpeting?
Yes, and dispose of it.
Concern that I have is, do we know what is beneath this existing carpeting? Is there old soft tile underneath it or whatever, or do we know?
Kathy, you want to talk on that since you talked to the guy about it?
We have a portion of the town hall and the office does have some 9x9 tiles underneath it. We don't know exactly how much of it has it. We've looked in a few different places and didn't find any tiles. When I spoke with the carpet gentleman, he has a machine that will go right over the carpet and just take the glue off. He can't say 100% that something might happen, but he's pretty comfortable with doing the project. When we pulled up a couple of places of carpet, it pulled up very easily from the tile, so it wasn't, he didn't think it was going to be an issue.
Here's my concern related to that particular issue. Given the age of this building, other than the roughly 24-foot addition on this end, if it goes back to 1958, good likelihood that some of those original flooring materials were asbestos-containing materials. 9x9 tile is usually an indicator of vinyl asbestos tile containing asbestos. Frequently, that tile was put down with adhesives that were asbestos containing. There's a possibility that there could even be asbestos in the adhesive that this carpeting was put down, that the vinyl base along the walls was put down with. I would not be comfortable and wouldn't support entering into an agreement with somebody to do that unless we had knowledge and determination, which probably takes some testing as to where those asbestos-containing materials are. If those are asbestos-containing materials and they are disturbed during the demolition process, we're in a whole lot of trouble.
We haven't done any testing, obviously.
I did not find any testing from the past, and I did not do any testing.
And what kind of carpet are we putting down? Are we putting down bulk carpet or carpet tile?
Carpet tiles.
So Supervisor Fisher, would you support getting some testing done for both the carpet adhesive, the tile, and the tile adhesive?
I think that's absolutely essential.
And then a recommendation of how to address that. Is there how to encapsulate it? I don't think we want to pull it up. I think we'd rather encapsulate it.
I understand if we can. My concern is, because since it's happened before, we may not want to pull it up. If it's not disturbed, it may not be an issue, but inadvertently some of that tile may decide to come with carpeting instead of stay on the floor. And that's why I think we need to know what we're getting into.
And talking with Kathy, the carpet guy did say that in the section that's possible asbestos, they would pull it up slowly. If anything starts breaking, they would stop, and then we would have to deal with it at that case. Because like you said, if it stays encapsulated, we aren't going to have a problem. It's going to be when you pull the carpet up, the tile sticks to the back of the carpet and starts pulling off, then we've got an issue.
I guess I would just point one other thing out, though, Supervisor Wolf. I think with this public facility, I think we need to know for sure that the adhesive that glues the carpeting to the tile is not asbestos containing. Yep. I think we absolutely need to know that. I don't think we can take a chance on that.
Well, you can check, but I can't believe this carpet can't be that old that it's asbestos glue holding the carpet down. It would be the glue holding the tile underneath the carpet that would be the issue. Because this carpet can't be, 15 years old? They wouldn't have asbestos.
Well, I'm not going to give that kind of assurance, and I don't think we can do that. I would say it's more likely than not that it doesn't have asbestos, but I think the town needs to have that insurance. It's going to cost us, might cost us up to $1,000 or what or not to do it, but I think we need that assurance. I think to do it any other way is not a responsible thing to do in a public facility.
I concur. I think the last time I had asbestos testing done recently, it was about $30 per sample, so it's not excessive. It's not an excessive cost.
I just have a quick question. Do they come in and test and take their samples themselves? Because they're going to have to pull up the tile.
They'll come and they need to take 3 samples of each item we want tested. So if we want tile tested, they'll go to 3 separate spots and take 3 samples. Same with carpet mastic and same with tile mastic. Do we need a motion, Attorney Macy, to authorize the clerk to go ahead and order testing?
I would. I mean, but I'm hesitating only because I'm wondering: are you of a mind to say that that the project is authorized as long as the testing is done and is successful, or are you planning on bringing it back?
Bringing it back. I'd like to know what's underneath.
I would just add one other thing to it. I think the availability of those funds and so forth and how we're going to fund it, I think we've got some issues that we have to resolve with how those monies get expended from that capital fund. Agreed. I don't think we're there yet either. So that's a second issue.
You could take a motion, or you could just direct her to have the testing done. I think you directed her to get the costs, or Supervisor Wolf to get the costs. And so you could just be a directive to Supervisor Wolf to work with the clerk to get the testing for the discussion and come back with the information. I don't know that you need a motion. It's a consensus that it's a directive.
So be it. Unless there's any disagreement from anybody else. We'll move on to D, Shimoleski Development Financial Assurance Resolution. Engineer Janelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you, you should have my letter dated December 18th, in which I am recommending a reduction to Mr. Shimoleski's financial assurance. He has a cash deposit with the town in the amount of $74,000 and change for his extension of Gretna Drive. The work that has been completed to date, so the ditching, road construction, graveling, grading, and binder course of asphalt has been completed. So a reduction is reasonable. The reduction request of $45,816 I evaluated and seems reasonable as well. So I recommend that reduction be done with a remaining financial assurance of $28,200.80 remaining.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the reduction as Mr. Janelli has pointed out, leaving it at $28,200.80.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And not dead last, but close, is the Tyler Technologies contract. Attorney Macy had some comments on that for us.
Yes, you should all have my letter delivered tonight on February 6th, I believe. It sets forth several items. We have reviewed their contract previously and approved the same with these same comments. And they're here this evening, and I assume, but I don't want to speak for them, that they don't probably have any problem with our comments. Secondly, though, we do recommend, as anyone who's following the governor's budget bill, that you only enter into one-year contract till the government decides what they're going to do. As you may have noticed in the governor's budget bill, he is recommending going to a county-wide assessment. So we're not recommending anybody go into long-term contracts at the moment, but I'm sure these gentlemen will be working hard to make sure that doesn't happen unless they can get all 72 counties. Maybe they will recommend that it happens, but so most of my clients are not going to one-year contract until this is resolved.
With that in mind, I also asked Mark to separate the cost for assessment and the cost for digitalizing. Because this year we were going to pay that little upcharge for that. I think it was $1,500 or
$2,800.
But well, $2,800 for that. I asked them to separate the two, so then, if in fact this gets through the governor's budget, that the county can charge us back 95% of the assessment. At least it reduces that by the 26th.
And may I ask for clarification, Mr. Chairman? That's not to say we're not going to do the digitize. You just don't want a part of the assessment contract.
Right. I just wanted it separated out so then they understood that it was the assessment was $2,600 and the rest was for digitizing.
That's correct.
And you guys are okay with the one-year contract?
Yes, we've actually been running on one-year agreements here for the last 3 years or so.
Okay. Any questions for Marty Keene? Is there a motion?
I move we accept the Tyler Technology contract.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank you
guys,
all.
thanks for waiting.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
And last but not least, authorization to pay the bills. We've got three separate, we'll take three separate ones. First one is $47,189.12 for overpayment of taxes. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we pay the bills for the overpayment of taxes in that amount.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, bill for Rupert Melky of $5,492.60.
Make a motion, we approve the Rupert Milky bill in that amount.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain?
Aye.
Motion carries. And lastly, $87,753.80.
Make a motion, we pay the remaining bills in that amount.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And lastly, a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Stay warm.